I met three men who claim to be the king of country music. I received a message from someone calling themselves George Strait fans. Now, I've talked to a few fake George Strait profiles in my time. George messaged me saying, "Hello, sweetheart." And I asked if it's really him because I had another person saying he was George Strait and asked for Apple cards. I told him it was good we set up a security word at the pool and the fake George Strait didn't know it. I told him I would show him tomorrow on the plane. He said it was okay, darling, and he was so sorry that I had to pass through all of that, my love. He then asked me what I was doing, and I told him I was about to take a shower, and he asked if we can talk on a more secure platform so I won't fall for other fakes, and he asked me to download Telegram. I told him to just call me like you normally do, George. I told him, "You called me this morning, and this trip will be better as I've purchased the 120 Apple gift cards and t shirts for the giveaway." He pretended and kept playing along, thinking he could convince me that he's the real George Strait and that I know. He asked if I'd already booked my flight, and I told him we were taking our private plane, and he replied that it sounds interesting. He said he hoped I was ready, and I asked him if we were going to do it like last month, as we do this monthly, and I bought all these Apple gift cards and iTunes cards from the manufacturing company. George said that was awesome, and I told him he should have invested. Fake George said he thought of that, but what could he do? I told him to give me money, and I laughed. George asked me about investing, and I told him I would contact Morris and he will give you a price of all of our lawyers can work up the paperwork after our trips this week and we can sign you up. We'll talk on the plane. Fake George said okay, but he was having some issues and he didn't really know how it would be. And I asked him how so, and please don't tell me you need an Apple gift card. He says, "No, not Apple." George said he was having issues with his system and he can only unblock it with a Steam or Amazon card. And I told him, "Well, go buy yourself some then." He said, "Okay, thanks though." And I told him, "You can buy them online." George said he already told me that everything is on the system and he can't unlock it as he doesn't have access. I told him to give me his login and I'll do it for him. He said no and to send him a Steam card. I told George, "Why don't you drive over to my house and you can use my device?" But he wanted the Steam card, and if I really wanted to help him, I would. I told him, "No, I don't do Steam cards." He asked what I do have, and I said Apple and iTunes. He said $200 though, and I asked the nickname that he calls me, and he said Bubba. I laughed at the name. I told George, "That's what we call your son." I told him hurry, as I had to get dinner going, and he asked, "Why don't you tell me something you already know? What are you insinuating?" I told him that's how I know if I'm talking to the real George, 'cause the real George doesn't ask for gift cards. But he said he's in need now, and that's why. He said, "If you don't want to help, that's fine." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." But he kept saying he really needs it now, darling. Give me the Steam card. I told him to give me the nickname and I'll send the card. I have plans to have a moonlit walk on the beach. George replied, "Bubba." And ever since he lost Jennifer, he only calls the nickname Bubba. I told George, "But you called me this special nickname since I was 12. Just tell me what it is." He said I was making things complicated and to just go get the card. I asked him again for the nickname he calls me to confirm that it's really George. George said he forgot. And I told him he couldn't have, and he needs to give me the security nickname, and it wouldn't be any good if I told everyone. Since the real George Strait, I have to double check. George asked if I doubt him, and I told him I would give him a call on his personal cell phone, and George said he's not using Messenger. He wanted me to download Telegram. I told him I now know he's not George Strait, as the real George doesn't use Telegram, and I told him to have a good day and shame on you. Meanwhile, another George Strait was chatting to me while this first one was chatting. It's crazy how many fake George Strait profiles are online. George number one has stopped talking, and George number two is right at it. The new George said hello and asked if I was there and asked how I'm doing today. I told him another imposter is pretending to be him and asked for Apple cards, and I was so happy we worked out our secret security word the last time we were at the pool together. He said, "Really?" And I told him, "Yes, thank goodness for our secret nickname. It saved me from sending $1,000 to an imposter." George said they are all scammers who use his photos, and he pretended that he knew about it and the security code so he can feel safer, and I can feel safer in his arms, honey. I said, "In my arms? What are you talking about?" He said, "I don't know why someone is trying to divert what I was asking for you." He said he truly desires me and wants to see me smile, honey. "I love to see your smile," he said. I told him, "You're not the real George either." He asked why I said that he wasn't the real George. And I told him, "The real George doesn't talk to me this way. How sick." George said he feels great pains in my heart at the moment because of the things happening around. I again told him he's not George and he doesn't talk like that. I told him I had to shower and I'd be back shortly. And he said okay. He kept asking if I was there, and I told him yes, I was on FB. He said he was at the library checking and figuring out a song he was working on. I told him we leave for our flight at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I told him the trip would be great as we have 120 Apple cards and t-shirts ready to give away. George said okay, honey. Once you leave, tell me, okay? He said he'll be there, but he needs a card so I can know how to get the movement and everything done tomorrow. He said if he's able to get the card by today, he will be able to talk to the management because they are waiting for me to get a good response to them. I asked if he wants to ride with us to the airport, and he said, "Not now, honey. We will be together soon. He promises, sweetie." George said he will add me as his beneficiary, and it's not a mistake. He loves me so strongly, and not to worry. He has me covered and asked me if I have plans for tonight. He told me the Lord keeps me and my husband good and thanked me for my love and support and asked if I've eaten. I told him yes, I had chicken, and George said he had mac and cheese, but he needed to call the doctor tomorrow as the dish didn't have enough pepper on it and he has a sore tongue. I told him you'll miss your flight. He said if he can get a card by early tomorrow, he can have everything done before the travel plans, so it all depends on you, honey. I asked what the code word nickname is, and he asked me why I need to ask for such security so badly. We're the only ones who know it. We both know the code, I told him. It's to know if he's the real George Strait, and it wouldn't do any good if I told everybody the code. Besides, we have to double check because they ask for money and cards. I told him, let me call you and you can answer the phone with the nickname. Answer the phone, I told him. He refused to answer, so I told him to have a good day, wannabe George Strait, and I'm on the phone with the real George now. Shame on you. My third and final chat with another fake George Strait. George asked me for a card and stopped talking to me when I told him no. I told him he quit talking to me because he couldn't get a card out of me. Fake George said no, he would keep talking to me, and I told him true friends don't let each other down. I told George he can start by helping to pay my bills. He said yes, but his account is frozen. I told him I paid my light bill by selling some soda cans. George asked me how much money I have left, and I told him $20. George asked me to get something for him then. I asked him out of what? He said out of my $20 left over so he can get into his account and get it fixed so he can transfer money to you from my account. And I told him no, I need the $20 for food, and he said, "Am sorry for that." I told him we need eggs, beans, and bread. And George said okay. He says once his account is fixed, it'll be done. And I told him to sell one of those rings he has. He said his woman took them away in the divorce, and I told him I'm sure you have other things you could sell. He said okay, and he can be ready for me to be with him. I told him I'm happily married. I told him FedEx just arrived with all the cards that are ready for the school, and I told him I'm going to buy my food now. He told me to take $10 out of my $20 grocery money I had and buy him a Razor Gold card. I told him if I have enough for food, I can't get the Razor card, and he asked which ones I see at the store. I told him I'm buying eggs and I can get him a $1 Razor card as food is so expensive now. I told him I saw Apple cards and he told me to get one. I told him I need food first and I can get him a $1 card. He told me, get the card now, get it now, show me the card, he demanded. I told him, when we get home, I'll ask my husband for a half-dollar one. I sent him a picture of a $10 Apple card, but it was very faded. He said to snap the back of the pic when I get home. I sent a very light, blurry back of an Apple gift card, and he said, send a better photo. And he said I told him we had to stop off and drop off something at my husband's friend's house, and we're talking about you, George. George asked who, and I said, your housekeeper. It's a small world. He doesn't believe you're real, and he's calling your real housekeeper now to confirm. And he asked what they said about him. I told him the housekeeper has the real George on the phone, and we realize you are not the real George, and I'm so disappointed. George said, you see, I acted as if I didn't know when your husband called because I told you not to tell no one about it, but you told your husband. I told George you wanted a gift card. We didn't have it, but our food money. I told fake George he's disgraceful and other foul things. He told me he said he would take care of me when I'm ready to be quiet, and he told me I was mean. He asked if I used the Apple gift card yet, and I told him no, and asked how do you use it. He asked if I still have the gift card with me and sent me a bunch of heart emojis over and over. I told him no, I haven't used it, and he told me not to tell my husband about the card. I told him the real George said you're an imposter, and he gave me the secret security word. George said that I don't trust him, and he said he would teach me how to use the card. Just send it to him, and he will make it a point in which you can use it for anything you like. I sent a very blurry picture of the front of the card again, and he asked me for the back. He was only trying to help the situation. He told me he would pay my bills and planned on transferring me money on the 3rd of the month, and to always text him on the page here, okay? I told him the real George wouldn't ask for gift cards and that he's an imposter and he says he has work to do and said goodbye. I told him the real George was going to pay for his visa and give you a job, but never mind, goodbye. Scammers don't care if you sell everything you own, starve, or go without food. They want anything and everything you can give them, and unfortunately, this happens often, and people do fall for their lies. Never buy gift cards for anyone online who you meet and demand these cards, especially celebrities, as it'll be scammers in disguise. And unfortunately, there's a lot of fake George Straits going around, especially on FB and on IG. They pretend to be fan pages, they pretend to put you in touch with the real George, or they just pretend to be the real singer and ask you for money and gift cards. Remember, the real singer is a well established man with lots of contacts, lots of money, and he doesn't need your gift cards, and he wouldn't be asking for them. Scammers, on the other hand, love to pretend to be really famous singers, such as George Strait, Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson. You name it, they pretend to be 'em. Don't fall victim. As much as we'd love to think that our favorite singers are writing to us or needing our help, in reality, they're not. And it's a scammer. Until next time, stay safe. And if you'd like to share your encounter with a celebrity fake or a romance scammer you've met online, scammingscammers@gmail.com, or you can find us on FB Scamming Cyber Education. Our inbox is there as well. Drop us a message and we will get your story narrated into a video and verified as well. Till next time, take care, and as always, stay safe.